I'm Danny. This is Asha. We're two Kiwis who, after 5 years living in London, bought a sailboat called Bacchus and set off on an adventure to sail home to New Zealand. We sailed the south coast of England, the Atlantic coast of France, Spain and Portugal, the Canary Islands, and then all 19 days across the Atlantic Ocean to the paradise of Barbados. We spent 6 months exploring some of the beautiful islands in the Caribbean, got a little waylaid by a global pandemic, and are now continuing our voyage home. Follow us on our adventure. In our previous episode, we had recovered from our epic sail across the Pacific. We got engaged and checked out some local Marquesan life off the grid in Nuku Hiva. Des and Sam from Fat Susan are going to give us a hand with the stern anchor. She's just going to drop coil.
Thank you. I'll just come jump in.
Okay.
Go.
Right.
Okay, just like this.
Sammy, mine is closed in. Engine off, I think.
There it comes. Oh yeah. Anaho Bay was the first time on this trip we have used a stern anchor because the anchorage was notoriously rolly. It was great having friends with a powerful and stable dinghy to help Asha haul it up. Bring it in. Woohoo! Anchor up! Well done!
Oh, thank you so much, guys. That was really cool. You were leaving today. Yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah.
You did that in less than 5 minutes.
That was easier than we thought. Easy peasy lemons.
Good stuff. Couldn't have done that in Waka Waka.
Definitely not.
Dolphins everywhere.
Wow. Oh man, there's so many. Just rolling into Anaho Bay now. Had a nice little motor sail around Nuku Hiva. Weren't able to switch the engine off unfortunately because the wind was quite light. We only had about 10-12 knots and a bit of a rolly sea, so the sails didn't really stay full. But it's well worth it for this arrival. It's amazing.
Beautiful.
A little bit close to this catamaran that you can see just behind us, and it's always a bit tricky in these anchorages when you don't really know how close you can get to people for them to still feel comfortable. I'm confident that we're not going to touch him, but we're a little bit close, so yeah, we'll just see. If he pops his head out the window and he has a problem, then we can move, and if he doesn't have a problem, then great. But he's French. The French love anchoring on top of each other. They do it all the time, so should be cool. Beer time, I think.
Swim first for me.
Swim first?
Yeah.
Cool. So this is the French Pacific of the old storybooks that I read when I was a kid. Things like South Pacific Vagabonds and
those other old books, these gorgeous remote islands that we can go to. And it feels like we're landing on one now. We're just on the north side of Nuku Hiva, and we're just rowing ashore, and we've got this beach pretty much all to ourselves. We've got a couple of other boats in the anchorage, but it's pretty remote. Looks like there's one little house and just some coconut palms. We're going to try and get pee on the beach without swamping it. Seems like a really idyllic existence. There's no road access here. There's coconut palms and gardens and orchards and a few people that live in the village, little church. Apparently this is one of the few spots in French Poly that has a coral reef. It's just breaking out here between us and the anchorage. So that's pretty special. Right, I shouldn't say French Poly, Marquesas. One of the few places in the Marquesas with a coral reef.
Yeah. It's gorgeous here. It's beautiful.
So pretty.
We just fetched some cocos from the tree, and that's just gonna chop one open now.
Oh.
Have a drink.
Oh man, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
Oh. That's beautiful.
A few more boats arrived in the anchorage in Anaho, so we decided to head around the corner to Anaho Bay, where we could anchor in peace and quiet on our own for our last few days on Nuku Hiva. We weren't entirely on our own though. We had these beautiful creatures for company. The manta rays in Anaho were massive and so majestic to watch.
And we're off again. Bacchus puts to sea. We are saying goodbye to Nuku Hiva and we're heading south to Ua Pou. We've got a nice bit of breeze, good bone between our teeth as we beat down towards this northeast point. And then we should be able to crack off and have a nice reach. It's about 40 miles down to the next island. So this island in front of us is Ua Pou. It's about 20 miles south of Nuku Hiva. We've had a pretty blustery, squally sail across the channel. This is where we're planning to anchor. It's a little bit rolly, it's a bit exposed. It's spectacular, but yeah, I don't know how much roll we're willing to put up with. Let's see what the first mate thinks.
Yeah, I'm not totally convinced it's going to be super comfortable. One mono hull is rolling quite a lot and the other one not so much. I think maybe if we anchor up in this corner here, it might be a little bit better.
You can sit here.
Perfect, thank you.
What are you up to, Asher?
So we've just walked up into the jungle and we've come to visit the chocolate man and his oasis up here above Ua Pou. And we're really looking forward to trying some of his chocolate. Oh, I see.
That is macadamia.
Macadamia?
Macadamia local.
Okay.
I make in the chocolate.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the middle is macadamia Hawaii.
Okay, yeah. Oh, wow.
Little flowers,
Yeah.
and after green, they come back. And after in 6 months, it's big.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
And then this is the cacao.
Yeah,
Yeah.
many flowers.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And you've got bees in the hive there. Bees bzzz,
Really?
to visit the flowers.
Here is
This is from
an
the
old
windscreen.
window, the ambulance.
I can see from the ambulance. Oh, good.
It's comme ça, open here,
Yeah.
when the soleil, no rain inside.
Perfect.
What have we got here?
So these are cashew nuts,
Oh, yeah.
and this is cacao, and this is coffee. And this has all been grown here.
Here is
Going.
it's no danger. Okay?
No dungeon.
No danger.
Not dangerous, okay.
It's special.
It's special, right.
You come here,
Yeah?
oh, little bit.
Yeah?
And after you make like this,
Yeah?
with your hand, you make your pose.
Yeah? Yeah, I make my pose.
No hands, you make the foot.
Yeah. Over here.
No, like this. Non, pas comme ça. Là.
No, I'm not grabbing it.
Pas de pesticide. No pesticide.
No, but
The chocolate guy was a little on the touchy side, but the chocolate was delicious, so we stocked up our supplies before we said goodbye to the Marquesas.
Quelqu'un? Ouais. Et one pistache.
Lovely.
Okay?
Perfect. And that, lovely people, was Ua Pou. We visited the German chocolate guy and we went for a walk in the bush. And that was about it, sadly. We just don't have that much time. So it's a night departure for us and we are off to the Tuamotus, which we're really excited about. And I'm also a little bit nervous. The Tuamotus are known as the Dangerous Isles, or they were known as the Dangerous Isles before the days of GPS. There's a lot of reefs, a lot of things to dodge, big currents in the passes. It's going to be action-packed, so stay tuned. Something a little bit frustrating about this sailing because the conditions are just so nice and we're having to actually slow the boat down because we've got a very specific time that we need to arrive at Whakarava. We don't want to get there in the dark and our time to arrive is in the morning. So we're taking it quite slowly. We've got the boat really heavily reefed and Bacchus is just saying to us, go faster, go faster, go faster. And she would just love to be doing 7.5, 8 knots right now. And instead we're keeping her at 6. We've got the throttle firmly closed. So that's a bit frustrating, but otherwise the conditions are just lovely. We've got fluffy white clouds, blue skies, sunshine. We've got about 15 to 17 knots on the beam and a pretty flat sea. So it's lovely being out here. I do wish that we were flying away on a broad reach, but we'll live with the 6 knots. And the reason we're going slowly, this is the entrance to Whakarava there. It's a pass through the reef. And you can see here that there's another atoll just to the north. And these reefs aren't really marked or lit particularly well. And what I don't want is for us to end up arriving early and having to play around in that channel in the dark between 2 unlit reefs while we wait for daylight, because we can't attempt the entrance into Whakarava through here until the sun comes up. So hopefully we're going to arrive there shortly after sunrise and we can then eyeball the conditions in the pass, and if the current doesn't look too bad we can head on in. So in French Polynesia there's 3 different types of islands, geologically speaking.
There are tall islands like the Marquesas, which don't have a barrier reef around them. There are tall islands like the Society Islands, which do have a barrier reef around them, as well as having the tall volcanic peaks that we saw in the Marquesas. And then there's islands like the Tuamotus, which are atolls. And an atoll is just the outer reef, but there isn't an island in the middle, there's just a big lagoon. Now, the atoll ring, some of it is land. I've just sketched one here, called a motu, or an island. And then some of it is just reef, and the reef will be awash at high tide, and waves will be able to break over the reef into the lagoon. Some of the Tuamotus also have a pass through the reef, which is a deep water channel where boats and yachts can come through and access the lagoon in the middle, which is very sheltered and protected because the big ocean waves can't get in there. Some atolls don't have a pass, and so we can't get in there with Bacchus. Now, with these Tuamotus, when you're trying to come in, you need to time your arrival at the pass quite carefully. And the reason for that, if I just draw an opening here between two islands, and then if we imagine this is the lagoon in here, when the tide is rising, the water will come in through the pass, and because the lagoon is so big and the pass is so small, this current can be quite strong of tide rushing in. So every 6 hours this current will reverse. We'll get incoming tide, and then as the tide's falling, we then get an outgoing tide. And the outgoing tide, I've done that arrow bigger because it's much stronger, and the reason it's much stronger is because as well as the tidal water having to leave out of that little pass, we've also got all of the waves that have been crashing over the reefs, the low parts of the atoll, and filling up the lagoon with extra water, and all of that water needs to leave as well. So the outgoing tide is really strong, the incoming tide is strong but not as strong. In some of the Tuamotus, that outgoing tide can be up to 12 knots, which is really, really fast. So when we're trying to bring a boat like Bacchus through a pass, we try and time it for slack water, where the tide is changing, either high tide or low tide. If we have a situation where the current is going one way and the wind is blowing the other, then we get standing waves. And that's where we get these breaking waves in the pass. If they're big enough, they can be a danger to boats, but normally they just mean it's a bumpy ride coming through. So that is atolls in a nutshell. They are beautiful places to visit. The lagoons are just the most fantastic anchorages once you can get in, but getting in can be a little bit exciting.
When we went out with Tangi and Anna, we learnt about these Tahitian chestnuts, which are called ihi, and when you open them up you get a big nut out like that, and you can cook them, and they're quite good to eat. And we found some when we were in the bush on Ua Pou, and when Tangi was opening them he used a machete, a really sharp machete, and he was really deft with his strikes, and he could just cut around the edge and pull the nut out really quickly. My machete is blunt and I'm not as good with it as he was, so I'm using a chisel and a mallet and trying to be careful of my fingers. It's quite a tough little shell to get into. Also doesn't help that we're rolling around on a boat now, but I think it'll be worth it to have ihi for dinner.
Bit of bush tucker.
You can see the nut inside and that little husk.
Hey! Got it out.
There's an ihi. Up a little bit. Oh shit. Hey, got him.
Nice.
That's right.
It's just a little one.
Little tuna. Beauty.
Nice.
Hoo-wee. Another fish.
Hey!
Nice. Yeah. Where's our fish rag? Oh man, you got some good blood splatter in the cockpit. Chuck me that. Oh, look at
It looks like a murder scene in here.
it does. A bit of blood on Bacchus's teak, a bit of blood on Danny's legs. Last night on passage, this one's just been so easy. Sailing conditions have just been lovely, really pleasant. And we've got our first sight of land behind us, a little TK atoll. I don't know if anybody lives there, but there's no pass to get into the lagoon, so it's not much good for us. And we've got a cracking sunset going on over here. Today's the day it all happens. We are about 20 miles away from the North Pass of Whakarava, and according to our little current guesstimated tool, we want to be there around about 10 a.m. and it's looking like we've timed the arrival quite well. Got a lovely sunset behind us, sunrise I should say, and the wind is pretty gentle, so it should be an easy entrance I think into Whakarava. Receiving.
Yeah, we just followed the ocean blue out. On the west side there is definitely a diver in the water. They've got a pink float sticking up in the air. They're on the west side, so if you're on the east side as originally recommended, you should be okay. Over.
That is really helpful, Supertramp, thank you very much. We will make our approach on the east side and we'll keep a close eye for divers. Many thanks for your help.
No problem. They're coming out of the pass, obviously. You've got a 3.5 knot current against you, over.
Roger that. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Anyway, that's good to know. So we're going to be hugging the eastern edge of the pass as we go in, and around the 7 metre contour, I think. And we'll follow that in around here, and then we'll make our turn left. Cool. Alrighty, let's rock and roll.
To our first Tuamotus pass.
These are the standing waves of the Tuamotus passes. Good ones out here. Well, we made it, anchor down in paradise, another tropical island.
It's beautiful, absolutely stunning. The water is amazing. It's like the Bonaire and Barbados colours again.
Yeah, really turquoise and iridescent blues, and it's lovely.
We've got a good spot right in front of the beach, so hopefully our anchor holds here.
It wasn't the best set, we could hear it kind of grinding in some rubbly stuff down there, so I'm going to dive down and have a look.
Pretty good view. So
Yeah.
I think beer time?
Beer time and bacon sandwiches.
Yeah.
Yum.
Join us on our next episode as we explore the most beautiful destination of our journey so far, the Tuamotus. If you want to support us, maybe help us replace our drone I crashed into the water today, then check out our Patreon page.